We are live. All right. I hope everybody likes the new logo animation. And here we go. This is a two-man show today. It is myself, Steve Johnson, and we've got Mr. Yabi Woods over there. Mr. Woods, tell them your name. Tell them where they can find you.
The Mad 83 Hatter. You can catch me on, well, you can go to www.whywoodswhynot.
No one says www anymore. I'm just putting that out there.
I know. I thought I know. I just felt like
don't let company hear you say that.
www.
Yeah. Nah, it's not.
I know.
It's not what's hot out there.
It's everything is just it's automatically HTTP and then
see what I'm talking about?
No. I know. You just say it.
You probably still go on the bus and try to give them tokens.
Well, I was just trying to use Lycos the other day, but
nothing
happened. So, I know I'm really dating myself right now, but it's cool. I don't mind that.
You were a Netscape guy. You probably still got that browser going.
Was definitely a Netscape guy.
Okay.
I didn't want to succumb to like AOL or anything like that.
Yeah. So. You got the DVD, the CDs in the mail.
I got the CDs.
Paid them $20 a month for some dial-up shit with the. I need somebody to make a beat with the dial-up internet
with just that tone. Going on. Don't repeat it, but the gold and the platinum CDs. Well, right. I like to go left if people go right.
Hey man, when they zag, you like to zig.
Still in a box.
All right, but whywoodswhynot.com. That's where the people can find you, and on Twitter and Instagram, it is the Mad 83 Hatter.
Yeah, I'll eventually get back to Twitter. I do have to do that.
And I noticed you have omitted the Facebook there, but that's a topic for another day.
It was pulling teeth even just jumping back on Twitter. Mind you, I've been a member since 2015, and I have, I think, 2 tweets.
I mean, you say 4. Since 2015, like that's like a feat of...
I see people do more with less, so whatever.
Okay. All right. And then me, you can just find me one place. That's Steve A.M. Johnson, and you pick your social network and I'm there. So except for Snapchat, because I think they are, and this is a conversation for another day, but I think Snapchat is spiraling out of control, and I don't know if they'll still be a company in a few years. But
all different topic
again,
conversation,
different topic for a different day.
But side note, as I said, I mean that is just 4 tweets, and I think 2 of them were repeats from like whywoodswhynot.com. That was it, or something like that. And I think I liked 7 things. Okay. I know this is not about that.
You think about it very, very hard before you go and like something. Like it's a big deal for you. You succumb. You feel like you're fighting monsters, and you have become one yourself.
I have a post about that on Instagram, actually.
Is that Nietzsche?
Probably, yeah. Okay. But I have a post about that on Instagram. But
be wary when fighting monsters, lest you become one yourself, I think is the way that one goes.
We'll see what happens.
All right, but enough about that. We are here to talk about the new Christopher Nolan film. It's a little independent flick, only costs $150 million to make.
Something light.
From our good buddy Christopher Nolan. He is the millennials Steven Spielberg. I'll go out there and I'm just gonna put that out.
Put that out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it was interesting seeing the young kids who were in the front watching the Dunkirk flick, and I said, "Oh man, look at them!" I said, they're just repping, Nolan, but they don't know what the hell is going on right now. They're just in it to win it.
But isn't that the beauty of it? This was a film that was sold off of nothing. Like the trailer was literally just a bunch of guys on a bridge looking up. And his name has so much cachet that it will bring people in there. And did you notice one other thing? Everybody shut the fuck up as soon as the lights went down. Even those rowdy kids in the front. Yeah, that is true. Everybody knew it. I'm telling you, it's a piece of art, and we'll get into that.
That is true.
But there is something to the cachet that this guy's name holds, and we'll talk about it in a second.
He's building. He's definitely building his. I mean, he's been building his brand, his name. As you said, but he's doing the damn thing. Definitely.
All right, but enough about not enough about the director. We'll get to that, but and when we do the ugly, but let's talk about this film specifically. So, Mr. Woods, give me the good. What did you like about Dunkirk?
So,
sorry. Before we do that. So Dunkirk is a film about there were 400,000 British soldiers that were stranded in a place called Dunkirk, and the Japanese, I believe, or who, I don't know if it was just the Japanese, but the point is they were cornered there and there was no way to get them out. And so
the Germans,
Germans and whoever else was on that axis of evil side of things. But they were cornered there, and it is just the story of, what happened when those soldiers were stranded there. And it's sort of a one of those. We've seen so many World War II films. To see a World War II film about, like, everything in World War II is about D-Day, right? But this was about a lesser known story, and
talking about in regards to Pearl Harbor and things like that.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. No, but D-Day is when we stormed the beach. That's what they showed in Saving Private Ryan. Okay. But Pearl Harbor is the thing that got us into the war, and we're not going to turn this into a history lesson right now.
Right.
But give me the good, or give us the good.
So I appreciate art, and what I like is that Christopher Nolan took the time out to showcase to me an artistic film in terms of visual. And I think you told me that he filmed it in 77.
60. It was the whole film was on large format.
Okay.
So it was a mix between filming directly in IMAX,
right,
and 65 millimeter.
65. Okay.
And we watched it in 70 millimeter. But if anyone's out here, if you haven't seen it yet, if you haven't seen it, I don't know why you'd be watching this, but spoilers. But it was all filmed on large format, and the reason it was on IMAX and 65 millimeter is, one, because IMAX is very expensive to film on,
right? But
the second thing is the IMAX cameras are very loud, so in any scenes where you need dialogue, they needed to use the 65 millimeter. So those closer shots, they would use the 65 millimeters. It's in some of the more claustrophobic shots.
So, and piggybacking off of that, that's what I was going to say. The good is not only that it was filmed in 65 millimeter, and, him taking that direction, or that artistic direction, to film a movie, but also how the walls felt like they were closing in on me as I was watching the film, because I was right there as an audience, as an audience member. I was right there with the actor in whatever scene that was taking place. So when in underwater and submerged underwater, feeling claustrophobic in this tanker and things like that, all of those scenes really worked, and obviously he knew what he was doing and trying to portray that. When the audience was taking flight, we were in air, with the soldiers, trying to shoot down this enemy ship. And so I enjoyed all of that. That was really well crafted, well done. And the audio was a real. I'm an audiophile, so the audio was a real treat for me as well, in terms of just the sound effects and what Hans Zimmer had put together.
So this is just like fun fact stuff. The score that Hans Zimmer did, I don't know if you caught this, but there was constantly built into the score was the ticking of a clock.
Right. Time was running out.
Right. So that ticking literally was Hans Zimmer recording one of Christopher Nolan's pocket watches. And he digitized it and brought it in and built the score around that.
It works because it gave me the feeling, or at least what you were trying to do, that you were racing against the clock. Time was running out. That was, to me, that was the ongoing theme, that everything was a race against time, because you don't know when you're about to just, you're about to die. That was it.
Right. So, okay. Anything else you want to add to the good?
No, I mean, but as I said, overall, I just thought that I liked the direction in terms, and the visual. It was an artistic piece of war, of history, rather.
Right.
And this was mainly in reference to the British and
the French.
Obviously, the French obviously played a role.
I know they wouldn't let none of them French get on them boats, though, not till all the British got out.
Well, the Brits come first, right? But I like what he was doing. I like what Christopher Nolan was doing, and I like how he filmed the movie, what he was doing in terms of the visuals, the sound, the sound effects, the feeling of the walls closing in on you. Everything that was going on in terms of the explosions of the bombs that's hitting the oil tankers and things like that, and the warships. I enjoyed all of that, so it was really nice. The visuals of the beach, everything was dope.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say, that guy Nolan did it again, man. This was the best way I can explain this thing. And again, I haven't had any Kool-Aid at least in 10 years. But I'll tell you what, I was drinking Kool-Aid. They should have just sold Kool-Aid at the concession stand.
When did Spider-Man 3 come out?
That might have been 2007.
Because you definitely had Kool-Aid that day.
I know. Right now I just meant like literal Kool-Aid, but if you want to say figurative, it still works out. I may have actually had some Kool-Aid, like mixed some up in a cup the day that Spider-Man 3 came out. But we're not here to talk about that.
Right.
We're here to talk about another installment into this chronicle of films that
because figuratively you've had drank the Kool-Aid before.
Yes.
All right.
This is true.
Just
now
that on wax. But
so
anyway, right.
So the thing is, aside, and I'll get into when we do the ugly, I'll get into final thoughts of how like this is a part of a whole, right? A part of a catalog of films that shows you the breadth of this guy's talent. In different, we've seen it in the superhero genre, we've seen it in the mystery genre, we've seen it in the crime drama, we've seen it in sci-fi, we've seen it now in a war film, and we're getting this guy's talent, and again, he doesn't repeat himself. But anyway,
his heist film and
right in Inception.
Yeah.
So but the good about this film is that I felt like I was there. right? And I said this a little bit earlier off camera, so if it's off camera, it doesn't exist, as they say. But there isn't a lot of dialogue in this film, and it works. And I don't know if anyone had names in this film because it didn't matter.
I don't think so.
And so the point was, you are just another soldier on the beach. You are another soldier in a fighter jet. You are a citizen in a boat who has come to meet people. That is the sense that I got. When they were in a boat, I felt like I was on a boat. When they were on the beach, I felt like I was in the beach. This is some of the best, and I'm not gonna disrespect Top Gun, but this is some of the best dog fights that I've seen in anywhere.
Dog, you can come on, man. Look, you could disrespect Top Gun. Top Gun is dope for nostalgia, but Top Gun was trash.
Slow down, buddy. Okay.
And I love Top Gun, but Top Gun was
okay.
Let's anyway.
Listen,
listen.
There were a lot of beach scenes here. Top Gun had the volleyball thing on the beach.
Oh God!
I don't know if there's some kind of correlation.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, as I said, Steve Johnson is a highly intelligent individual, and I do respect his commentary. But then he just sways off and says certain things. It's like, come on, man, bring it back. So
okay,
I mean, but we all have
film.
missteps because
back to this film. Look,
I don't get names correct, but
Top Gun is a classic film. It lives on in the pantheon of pop culture. But that's not what this was a filmmaker's film. And again,
yes,
so
it is a filmmaker's film. Yes.
So the thing is, the use I don't know if I can point to, like, IMAX is great, but essentially it's just a big screen, right? But when you put it in the hands of a guy like Nolan, and he's not the only one that like fully can utilize it,
right?
But let's remember, most time IMAX, they're just blowing it up. This was something different, right? And you can tell that when you look at and we saw it in 70 millimeter, not IMAX, but the whole time I'm thinking, like,
imagine this on IMAX,
right? Because you can see how much, whether it's 70 millimeter or IMAX, how much they're fitting into the frame. And that played into the expansive beach shots where you saw the soldiers on the
lined
beach,
up,
right? The opening
waiting
shot
to be rescued,
where you saw the flyers coming down, right? And and again, I just keep coming back to these dogfights. Like when you see the horizon with the cloudy skies that just, there's nothing there but where the sky touches the water.
Yeah.
And you can see the smoke off in the background. It is something that is so enthralling. And just being covered if your whole eye was covered, you feel like the screen is covering you when you're in IMAX.
Yes.
And I just feel like the way in which this was filmed, you should only watch it in IMAX.
So you missed
or a large screen 70 millimeter. And I do plan to go and see this thing again. So
I was just about to say, was that a missed opportunity? Is that going to spoil it if you go back to see it again?
So again, now
this gets your seal of approval to see it for a second time.
Absolutely. And I think it lends itself to being seen a second time because of the non-linear storytelling.
And not many films get that these days. You see it once and keep it moving.
Right. Well, I mean, there's so much out there, and then there's so much bricks out there. But
houses got to be built.
Hey, look, and so you know, I for the good here, I said this off camera, but like, there's like this film, and they didn't beat you over the head and make it be like a 3-hour war film, right? Like there's a pace They kept ratcheting up.
Did it feel frantic to you? But even
At
in a good
times,
way?
it felt frantic, but in the sense that it was supposed to be frantic.
Okay.
And I never felt lost in the film. I was wondering how they made it clear early on that they're telling this story and everything's happening and in different time periods, and
Right.
then in the last third of the film, which is like the last 30-40 minutes, it became clear that yes, we're looking at people in because at first I thought, okay, we're showing people at different times, right? But when you soon become to realize at a little after the halfway mark that no, this is all happening at once.
Well, it was showing you different. It was showing you what was happening with each character, right? And at all in linear time, because you know, but they were all experiencing something different, but it all segued into
Well,
a meetup
so
of
there,
some kind.
right. But
and that's what was so cool about it.
Linear, that is what was amazing about it. But when we talk about timing, so there's three ways. There's a million ways you can do it, but three like main ways you can tell a story in terms of film. Linear means you go from A to B to C and so on and so forth. So everything that you see happens in order.
Right.
So now that's linear. Now you have the other thing you have is there are different kinds of nonlinear, but when you have multiple timelines going on, which is what I thought what was happening at first, which was, okay, this is happening presently. This happened at some point in the past. And then this other thing is, in a different time frame.
So let me try and articulate
now,
that for
one last thing.
Okay.
Then there's what this was, where you're telling a few different stories all that are happening simultaneously.
Yes, exactly.
So there is no like, okay, here's the present and here's the past, and there's not like we go from A to B to C. This is like, this is this character's arc. It's all playing out linearly. And then there's this character's arc, which is all playing out linearly. And then there's that character's arc, which is all playing out linearly, but it's just cut up in a way where I'm jumping back and forth between those three main storylines, which would be the sea, the air, and land. And so what I was trying to articulate is just that, not so in like the grand scope is that, oh, it's just this happened here in Act 1, and this happened here in Act 2, and this happened here in Act 3. When I was saying linear, I meant for each individual character, but they all were meeting at the same point. You know what I mean? So the story, the story was running. There was simultaneous, like you said, there was multiple things happening, in each of the characters' own individual life, but time itself, in terms of like the linear composition of time, in a 24-hour day or whatever the case may be, or from getting from point A to point C, for the film, it's all on one timeline, but they're all coming in with their own stuff. You know what I mean? They're all, so it's this meetup on this grand scheme. And it was amazing in that way, in that sense or whatever. And that's what I liked about it. So it wasn't telling you, it was definitely telling you one person's story, another person's story, another person's story in reference to within a week, in reference to 24 hours or in reference into 8 hours or whatever the time was. But it was still all within when they met up at this one perfect point, and how it all connected, like how it was all connected. And so I thought that was really dope. Yeah, and that's the thing how, okay, we're telling all these stories of these people that don't know each other, and then they just sort of weave it all together,
Right.
and they made it all work,
Right.
right? And that is no simple task, and it kept me just, and I realized what he was doing, and I just kept thinking, okay, how does this tie together?
Right.
When is this thing happening? And when I saw that it was all leading up to Tom Hardy essentially saving the day,
Right.
um it was, even in a movie where, you know, it's a movie, so you don't want it to end so soon. It's just like this. It, it tied up in such a satisfactory way.
Right.
Um, so I mean, a lot of good, and you don't see films like this. So the thing that I wanted to say was, this film was basically, if you remember, in my opinion anyway, the greatest modern war film ever made
Right.
is Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan.
Okay.
And really, that's the one that sticks in everyone's mind because of the D-Day storm in the opening of the film.
Right.
And to me, this had that visceral feeling for an hour and 40 minutes, the entire runtime. It starts and it doesn't let up.
Right.
And I can't speak for anybody else, but it grabbed me and did not sort of ratchet it back. And I think that's part of the reason why the film is, basically an hour shorter than most of Christopher Nolan's movies.
Right.
Right? Because you can't keep that pace for that long.
Right.
And there was also no need. We don't need to go back to London and have some actor play Winston Churchill, right? This is about these guys on the beach that day.
Again,
you don't need all that exposition. There's not one exposition. Well, maybe one exposition dump in the beginning, but
right. Well, just to get people up to speed in terms of what was happening, and that's why I said, and then I'll jump off of this or whatever. But that's why I was saying that not not linear in the conventional sense, but just linear that we can't time travel, right? So there's 24 hours in a day, and everyone who was meeting on this day and how everything had worked when each character was coming into their own to interconnect on this day at this moment at this time. That's what I mean, that like, on the invisible line of time that can't be changed, everyone was intersecting at different intervals and then moving along or continuing on that same line of time on that 24-hour day. And so something that was really cool, there's a couple of things that happen in the film to talk about, but something like you said when you had mentioned that Tom Hardy had saved the day, right?
right.
But they were all heroes in their own way, right?
Yep.
And that's just, again, the artistry of or the vision of Christopher Nolan, man. You got to give props to that stuff. You can't understate that. So one of the characters had one of the soldiers, as they were coming to get a warm cloth to wrap themselves in, to break off from the cold. And he's giving them, there's this elder guy who's just at the station handing out blankets, and the soldier says, "We didn't do anything," and he said, "You survived."
Right.
And he was like, "That's enough." No, or rather, no, I might have missed that. He said, "We didn't do anything. We just survived." And the guy said, "Yeah, that's enough."
Right, because if just survive, like, they needed soldiers to win that war, and if they had not survived, maybe there's a completely different outcome.
Exactly, and that's what was so dope.
So you know how much it took in those circumstances to stay alive?
And what's the gentleman's name who played in other Christopher Nolan's films? Who played Scarecrow? And
Cillian Murphy.
and so Cillian Murphy, when he's aboard the boat,
Right.
and he goes, "You guys aren't soldiers. You're supposed to be home. You know, what are you doing here?" Looking at him crazy, and he's like, "We got to help you. We have to help. We have to do something. We have to do our part."
And remember, Mark Rylance, who's the guy captaining the boat.
Okay.
He, they at some point they said it in there. He had another son who died.
Exactly.
And he was flying the planes.
That's
like
how he
Tom
knew.
Hardy.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say, I'm glad that it
wasn't Tom Hardy.
Wasn't Tom Hardy.
No, that would
like,
have been
if it went there, I would have
Yeah.
just threw up everything.
Yeah,
I'd have
yeah,
been like,
yeah.
you know what? Christopher Nolan's a hack.
Yeah.
I'm done with you.
Was you sitting there?
All the goodwill, I would have spit out the Kool-Aid I was gargling. It would have been done.
Was you sitting there when he was mentioning about his son being a pilot, and you were like, "No, please
don't do this.
Don't do this.
Please
Don't go for this."
Not like
And he's
this.
like, "Nah, his son died like a week in." It's just like, "Oh, all right."
But honestly,
It's like
it
his
could,
son.
because he ended up basically picking up all of the people that were flying with him.
Right.
Like I was saying, because we're not telling a linear story, I was like, you know what? It could be one of the people we looking at that's his son. But he didn't do that. So
no, he didn't.
give me the bad real quick. Whatever
So-
the bad is that you got.
So as good as the audio was, and as masterful as Hans Zimmer's work is, and the sound effects of the guns firing, and man, when those bullets was flying through that boat and pinging off of metal and things like that, and the bombs exploding on the beach, it was also a little well, I mean, it was on purpose to disorient you a little bit, but it took away from me hearing what the soldiers had to say in terms of those conversations. And so, as much as I do enjoy it and praise it as a an audio aficionado. Anyway,
Aficionado.
I botched that up. But anyway, so it's too late now. It's done. It's on wax. But no, as much as I enjoy the audio.
By the way, this idea that we still say on wax, like nothing's recorded on wax anymore.
Come on, man. So what? So anyway, so as much as I enjoyed the audio, it also took away from me hearing what the soldiers had to say, and so that was a little problematic for me. And so even though there wasn't much dialogue, it made it that much more important for me to hear the little conversations that was going on between the soldiers, even if they wasn't saying anything, even if it was throwaway dialogue, right? Or they were just concerned about, are we going to get a meal, or are we going to get on the ship, and who's flying in the air? I still couldn't hear it as best as I would have liked to. So that was a little problematic for me.
So, I mean, I think that I just take a little different view on there. I feel like because of the kind of film it wasn't like a film about politics, right? Like, and it wasn't, it, I know that the choice to this, and we came to this earlier, Christopher Nolan likes to get his audio when he's while filming. He doesn't want it after because it's more authentic that way.
Oh, okay.
And it also makes you feel more like you're there. It adds to the atmosphere if it is hard to hear. Like when you go to like a lounge or the club, or you're just out in Manhattan, sometimes people are talking, but it's hard to hear them, right? This is a thing that happens. And I know like we're in a movie, like you shouldn't do that traditionally, but this was a choice that was made specifically. And as an artistic choice, I don't hate it. Now, I did have a problem understanding some of the dialogue,
right?
But I think it is a far cry better than Bane. And I also think that a lot of what they were saying didn't matter. It was
Bane
to show
didn't know
you
what he was saying, and Bane didn't know.
We're not talking about that right now.
You just mentioned Bane, so
no, because that was another situation where like all the audio was recorded, like right there, instead of
Bane didn't even know what Bane was saying.
I believe you, but the point is, you know, I just think for this, it was acceptable and it worked. And it may not work for other films. I would get annoyed. And maybe I'm giving Christopher Nolan a pass because I want to sound like I'm all artsy fartsy. But I think it worked.
Well, an artist is an artist. But again, as much as I appreciated what he did, doesn't mean that it still didn't take away from me being able to hear it. And one other quick thing I want to throw in there is that, again, like I liked or I enjoy Hans Zimmer's work and his pieces in terms of his musical composition, but I felt at times it was so disruptive to what was happening, and maybe that was on purpose, but it was.
I mean,
it was,
you
again,
know what
it was
else is disruptive? Fucking explosions and bullets and brains getting exploded right behind you.
Right,
I think it was supposed to, if it's going to make you feel like you're there, it's going to be uncomfortable. Shit's loud.
I'm not talking about sound effects.
No,
I'm talking about
I'm just saying shit is loud. Score. And I just think that all plays into it because the idea is the film is it's very hypnotizing.
Right.
Not in the like terrible kind of BVS hypnotizing, which hypnotizes you with hate. This is like a good. By the way, I watched half of that film again today.
What?
BVS.
So is that like your 9th time?
Probably. It gets worse every time. And I don't know why I can't stop watching this thing.
You're addicted to the garbage.
But because it's so beautifully shot. It's just terribly like put together.
Executed? I don't know. Whatever. Film is trash.
Well, shout out to Zack Snyder, man. He is one of like the most visionary comic book directors out there. And I say visionary as in visually. He's visually effective. Okay. I'm putting the disclaimers on that. I'm saying the man knows how to set up a frame, right?
Right.
There's nobody working today that can like grab a panel from a comic and turn it into a scene in a movie like Zack Snyder can, hands down. But we're not talking about that. So for me, I would say the bad was I didn't, and this is again, it's an artistic decision, and I appreciate all those artistic decisions, but I feel like I didn't get names of anyone, and while I think it's dope to go that route, and I think it makes sense, I would have liked to get names so that I can like, because if it wasn't an actor I recognize, I have no point of reference for them, right?
Right.
Like it's very easy for me to say, oh, that's Cillian Murphy, that's Tom Hardy, that's Mark Rylance,
right?
And maybe those are the people that they wanted you to know, because everybody else is either just a soldier and Kenneth Branagh, you know.
I think him utilizing nameless soldiers was very interesting, and actually I enjoyed that. That you didn't have to be like, oh, there's Mike. What's going to happen to Mike? Because any one of them could have died.
That's another thing I'll say about
any
this
given
film.
Point.
They didn't telegraph any death. You didn't know who was just going to like get bodied right in front of you.
Because there wasn't like a scene of like, hi, I'm Sean, sir. I'm signing up because I want to serve my country, and you're watching Sean.
That was so beautiful about it that we don't need to get into those arcs. I don't need a half-hour scene before showing you home with your family hugging your daughter. No, it's about this day, and that worked.
How did that French dude die? Was a chain wrapped around his shoulder?
It was some kind of chain wrapped around his shoulder
when he was trying to get out, right?
Yeah,
but that wasn't on purpose, right?
No, it wasn't on purpose. He just got caught up.
He got caught,
and he, in the moment he couldn't get out.
How whack is that?
Super corny. It's like walking outside your house and getting hit with a brick and dying. Okay.
Except there's mad water and you're suffocating.
Yes, exactly.
So it's not as instant.
Okay, so that being said, we're going to move right along there. give me The Ugly. This is it.
Listen,
What's these final thoughts?
Overall, once again, I can understand if someone would have some issues with the film in terms of not.
I can't.
Not
sorry.
So anybody who has an issue with the film,
listen,
just
hold on. I'm
jump in the water.
Look at me. If you don't like this film, you're dead to me. That's it. Back to you, Mr. Woods.
Oh, so that's it. Okay. Well, there you go. Right into the camera. So, well, look, I can understand if somebody may not be fully on board with the film, because whatever, everybody's not gonna dead. But the film, when you look at Christopher Nolan's catalog, and Steve, you referenced it earlier about he does these, a mystery, a sci-fi, a little thriller here, an action film, superhero. He can just go in so many routes.
You know what though? You know what I need to see from
man.
Nolan? And not to cut you off, I need to see a rom-com by Christopher Nolan.
Come on, man.
If he does that, he's the GOAT. That shows he can do anything.
I don't want to. I don't want to see that. I don't want him to taint his good name. Just if he's too.
No, you know what that would be like? That would be like when you're playing Street Fighter and then somebody picks in the arcade and then somebody picks Zangief.
Oh, just to mess with you? Oh yeah.
Yeah. Body slims.
Yeah, just over and over again. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
So if he can pull that off.
Well, look, the rom-coms take a different type of intellect and wit and things like that. I think he's a thinker in a different realm. So, but man, just Christopher Nolan, man, he's just building a really cool catalog. And like I say all the time, all films have their plus and minuses. There's no film that's devoid of issues or errors, but this was another dope film from him. Not disappointed at all. So,
banger.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well,
what's yours?
My turn now. Look, spoiler alert. I thought the film was great.
Actually, he hated the film. He was just.
Wait, look at me. She was a brick. No. I thoroughly enjoyed the film, and I'm actually gonna go back again and see it on a larger screen because I felt like I was there. And again, when we're talking about World War II films,
right?
Like there is Saving Private Ryan, and I'm talking about, like, obviously I know there are older things, but I'm saying there's Saving Private Ryan, and then there's this. And again, I was I was caught up in the movie the whole time. Like, you saw me. I was literally this is not a joke. I wasn't figuratively on the edge of my seat. I was literally on the edge of my seat watching this thing.
Right.
And again, it is just a different kind of filmmaking. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen from one moment to the next. And if anyone watches a film with me, especially on Netflix, no chill, I can telegraph anything that's gonna happen in a movie. I can tell you who the bad guy is gonna be like 10 minutes in a mystery movie. I can tell you who killed who. I can tell you who's not gonna end up with the girl. I can see the setups. I get that. But with this, I didn't know who was gonna happen to what. I didn't know what was happening from one moment to the next. Whether it was like just this beautiful dogfight in the sky, or whether it was this, bitch ass soldier that ended up killing the kid on the boat, or whether it's these scared kids
by mistake.
Like, I did not know who anybody could. Nobody was safe to me at any point. I just felt like somebody could have been finished.
Did you see that coming?
I didn't know where they were going with the story.
Did you see that coming of the young boy?
No, I thought that he was going to use the gun and try to take the boat, but I thought like Mark Rylance was just such a G,
right,
that because he's so chill about everything,
right?
Like I just figured he had like his own pistol in the cockpit. So when Cillian Murphy tried to pull out his gun, he's like, "Nah, B,
Right.
I got you."
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I didn't see that coming. And then, it's like he said, I can't see. So I'm like, oh man, now he's gonna live his life blind.
No. If you, I knew that he was finished. If you can't see from hitting your head, usually, you're done.
Next thing up.
The next thing is seeing is feeling nothing, right?
Okay. I
So
thought it was just like some type of concussion or something like that.
No. He was done, and it worked for the narrative purposes. But again, so the other thing, just again, we're talking about the ugly here. This is just another installment of just great, different, outside of the box filmmaking. And the one thing that to understand from this is that, we're in the theater with a bunch of kids that
we're old.
Yes, I own that. I'm old. That's what the beard is about. Whatever. But kids that just got to the theater and shut up and watched the movie because they knew Nolan was making it. And I know they talk about Nolan like he is Scorsese or Spielberg or whatever, right. But and I'm sure he will be. But just you cannot be like, this is like a rapper coming in the game and they got like 2 albums and now they think they're Jay. Like, talk to me 10, 20.
I don't think Jay thinks
30
he's Jay
years
anymore, but it's another conversation.
I'm not having that conversation right now. But there's nothing people love than building somebody up than taking them down a peg. But I thought you were better than that, man.
I have my doctorate in Jay, so I can
now you want to join the bandwagon.
It's not a bandwagon
all over. But we're talking about Dunkirk and Christopher Nolan.
Right. Yes.
Look, the point is, this is another piece, and again, when you're talking about top 5 directors working today, it's not even a question. But when we're talking about directors of all time, like, we're getting to a place where you're gonna have to put Nolan in there.
Right. He's working his way up.
Every film is just like a different experience, a different take, and not everything is gonna be the Dark Knight. But I will say, he's still living in the shadow of the Dark Knight. You like that? What I did there?
Yeah, okay. That's
which is not that people are expecting him to make another Dark Knight, but that he can fill the seats and get a film made like this because of the work he did with the Dark Knight.
I think he's actually, I would say that people are expecting another Dark Knight from him, and the beauty is he keeps separating himself from that.
You ain't getting it.
Exactly.
And that's the thing.
And that's what I like about him.
When we talk about these things,
he could have sat pretty on just making those superhero money,
movies, and they would have given him the DC universe to run.
And he said, but again, nah, I'm bigger than that.
When you talk about that like the greats, right? You say Spielberg, and I could go down the list and say to you, E.T., Jurassic Park, Jaws, AI.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That list goes on. The Color Purple,
right?
And it's just so many. Indiana Jones,
right?
You know what I mean? Catch Me If You Can,
right?
I loved War of the Worlds. Some people didn't. I thought that film was amazing until the end.
I like the audio.
You know what I'm saying? And it Minority Report, like, the list keeps going on, and that Spielberg has put out so much work over the past 30, 40 years that it's just like, Christopher Nolan, I'm sure when it's all said and done, maybe he'll be looked at in the history of things when they're both gone and we're all gone, that maybe Christopher Nolan will be looked at as a higher tier, but you know what I mean. He still has to work, and he's making his way there. Any film that Nolan does, I'm in there day one because I want to see. And there's people that saw him do Interstellar and was like, you know what, I wasn't really a fan of Dark Knight Rises, and then Interstellar. I couldn't really follow it. It's too complicated for me. You know what I'm saying? Maybe as a director, Christopher Nolan has said all he had to say. Maybe, it was Inception, and it was
what happened with Interstellar. There was some issues with Interstellar, but
it was still just to get that kind of film made.
Absolutely.
You're not getting those films made. Not about what that subject matter was.
Right.
So close to what the science is on these things.
Right.
And that's like
without utilizing lightsabers and
exactly big space fights
guns
and all
stuff.
of that.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Nobody needs that. Like this is about, you gave us a human story, but you also gave us this relatively scientifically accurate
shout out to Matt Damon
piece of work. Hey, it looks like he went from the set of Interstellar and went to Mission to Mars. Or Mars, sorry. The Martian. Mission to Mars. Listen, and people don't know The Martian is really just like a ripoff of Mission to Mars.
I didn't.
Well, the first half of it. This is where I got introduced to Don Cheadle, because Don Cheadle was like the guy that got stuck on Mars.
Yeah.
And there was a storm and they had to leave. And the only difference was there was like actually aliens on Mars and Mission to Mars. But that's neither here nor there. The point is,
back on track.
Christopher Nolan gets your attention.
Yeah.
And I don't know if part of the reason I enjoyed this film so much is because I'm conditioned to like Christopher Nolan films, and
he's earned the right.
Is that a good
to your attention?
Right, which
he's
means
earned it.
Listen, under any other circumstance, if you showed me nothing about this film and it's just some guys standing on a damn beach looking up at the sky, and that's really all they showed, I'm like, I'm not going to see a movie, but I know it's Nolan and I know he has something in store for me.
Really quick.
He delivered this time, and I am a big fan. I actually own Interstellar because I had to buy it to watch it like 5 more times just to understand what was going on, which is what I did. I know you're going to say, well, I did that with Batman versus Superman, but I needed to understand why it was so terrible, which is why I keep watching it.
But really quick, did you think, my fault, but did you think that you needed to have extreme understanding of like World War II or war references in order to watch this film, or would that have been more helpful to you in watching Dunkirk?
I don't think so. I don't think you need that, and I think it's because he had done his job so well. And so, again, one of the greatest World War II movies ever made. And again, right there with the opening of Saving Private Ryan.
Okay.
Another Spielberg jammy. I don't know. It was an amazing film. So with that said, let's wrap this thing up. Final score. What do you give it? 1 to 10.
I give it an 8.
That's a good number. Why 8?
8.5.
No, change. You can stick with what you went with.
Well, no, I mean, again, because I enjoyed it doesn't mean that I felt like I couldn't hear. It's nitpicking, but I couldn't hear the audio or the dialogue between the soldiers. And again, as we discussed, like, yeah, you don't hear that. The soldiers hear each other because they're at war and things are loud around them and stuff like that. Okay, granted, but it still was something that I don't know if maybe you do bring them in, or you find a way to elevate the levels of the audio or something, just a little bit. But again, that's just my personal preference. So I still appreciate the art for what it is and what it was. I don't have to understand all of it to still, like it and appreciate it. So, but also one thing that I don't sway on is I enjoy Hans Zimmer's pieces, but what I was saying earlier is that the music, or the score, right, to the movie at sometimes became a little bit much. And so again, and that was probably
same thing happened in Interstellar. It's just this thing that Hans Zimmer is going for now. Well, that where he uses these horns
Right.
and it's like orchestra horns,
Right.
but they get so loud that they drown out everything else.
But with Interstellar,
It makes me
right,
wonder if maybe, and I know the sound was tuned really well, but what if he's tuning it for like a different level of theater sound?
might be because as I said, as you know, like I said, I'm an audiophile and stuff like that, so I enjoy those things. And Interstellar, the audio to Interstellar is amazing, and when it reached those crescendos, I was there. I understood because it reached the crescendo at a perfect point each time they were getting to, or transitioning or whatever, or something was happening, or he was, launching the rockets or whatever, or blasting off, whatever was going on, going into the black hole, stuff like that. It all made sense to connect to the docking station. It all made sense with this. So there was this real scene. Like I said, I'm nitpicking, but so there was a frantic pace in terms of one of the scenes of the score, and it sounded like it gave me the feeling that they should be running on the beach, but they wasn't. It wasn't even a jog. It was like a walk. It was still a walk, but the music was at a frantic pace that seemed as if something else should be happening. Now, when the next scene had cut in,
but is that when they were carrying the body?
no. This is far later. No, everything worked. The music worked all, but there was a couple of scenes where I was like, this is a little too loud and a little too jarring. But again, if that was on purpose, then job well done. But I don't know if and the audio, they know what they're doing. So it's just me nitpicking about certain things.
So all that being said, what's the score?
Still an 8.
Still an 8.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. It's a superb film, and I'm never going to give a film a 10. That's just spoiler alert. I'm never giving a film a 10, and so that's that. And and the other thing I would add that you just reminded me is, and again, this is me nitpicking, but I'm wondering if you could, like, the battle for Dunkirk, it was meant,
wasn't really a battle. It was just about survival. I mean, I guess there was a battle in the
no,
sky.
it was a battle. Well, it was a battle of Dunkirk because, and the only reason why that had happened was because they had decided the Germans had made a conscious decision that it's nothing. They're done. We've killed so many of them and stuff like that. We have them surrounded. They're finished. They're gonna die. Let's keep it moving. And there was many things that turned the tides of war, but by them not sending more troops to attack Dunkirk, that's what allowed when Winston Churchill said, let's get these guys out and position them in another area, so that they can send reinforcements in a different area of the war. That's what assisted and helped.
Well, not necessarily, because, and again, we've kind of went through everything already. We're just doing scores now. So, but I'll just say this last thing: Churchill only needed 30 or 40,000 men. There were over 300,000.
Yeah,
335,000 made it off, to be exact. So they were stranded there, and they were basically left for dead. But the townsmen came to go and pick them up.
Okay. So I stand corrected.
But Churchill would have left the rest of them there to fend for themselves.
Okay.
If he just needed those 34,000 men. So all that being said, time for me to score this thing, and I don't like to score things based on what I've given other films, but I gave Spider-Man: Homecoming a 9, and it deserved it.
Right.
And I enjoyed myself more in this film for very different reasons,
right,
than I did in that. So I think it's only fair that I also give this thing a 9, because that was my hype level.
Okay.
Right. And again, I'm very generous with the score, but it's very hard for me to give a film a 10.
Right. I think it's a little easier for you. But if we're going off of that, then of course I would say it's like an 8.5 or a 9. But
you gave it an 8.
I'm
you own that shit, man.
I absolutely do
Fuck
own it.
that.
But I'm saying if you're comparing it, because I said, Spider-Man's a 8.5 or whatever I said the previous film, or I said some film. was 8.5 or something like that. Oh, War for the Planet of the Apes, right?
Yeah.
8.5 or something like that. So, I'm not saying that that's better than this. They're different films.
Right. It's just like, and again, that's the whole thing. This film was an experience. You, you're not really going there for like,
No, I have to give
okay,
it an 8.5. I can't give it an 8. It's an 8.5.
you're not really going there for them to
Going
tell
record
you a
up that
story. You are
that score.
going there to feel something.
Yeah, it's an 8.5.
And so for me, I'm gonna go ahead and give this thing a 9 because this is a true. If you are a fan of cinema and just films, like watch this thing. It is, and it's not like too over. It's not as overbearing as Interstellar was, which was a great film. But you have to sit with Interstellar. This, I just can't wait to go see it again on a large IMAX screen so I can feel even more enveloped in it.
Right.
And that's it, man. Another review in the can. Thank you for listening. And, you can find me at Steve A.M. Johnson on your favorite social network. And Mr. Woods, tell them where they can find you.
whywoodswhynot.com and the Mad 83 Hatter on Instagram and Twitter.
All right.
8.5.
9.0, baby.
Yeah.
And that's it.